Good morning. Thank you to those of you who are on already and who are joining us today. My name is Melissa Garland. I am the Vice President of Client Development for AtlasRTX. And now we have our screen showing. That's awesome. Thank you. We at AtlasRTX build, run AI-powered chatbots for marketing, sales, and service. And this is the first in a series of webinars that we're hosting for the home builder industry. We've been working with the home builder industry since we started 4 years ago and have a lot of experience there. And we're excited to share that today with you and with our panelists. Today's webinar, we're calling Sales and Social Distancing, How Home Builders Will Adapt and Thrive, because we know that we will. And we want to talk today about the changes that sales folks like me are facing, not only in these very unusual circumstances of the coronavirus, but also in the broader already shifting landscape of the move to digital, right, across the customer journey. So we've brought together a panel of experts from our industry, including Pierrette Tierney, who is the Vice President of Business Development for Magleby Construction. Say hello, Pierrette.
Hello, everyone.
And Chris Hartley, who's another industry veteran, who was named 40 Under 40 by the Professional Builders magazine, and who by the National Association of Home Builders was named as one to watch in 2018. Say hi, Chris.
Hi, all.
And finally, our very own Bassem Salem, the CEO of AtlasRTX. Say hi, Bassem.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, fantastic. So as we get started, please, I would invite all of you who are watching and participating today to put any questions into the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And also send any ideas for future webinars, things that you might like to see or hear about, learn about. We will be doing a repeated series at the same time every week, diving deeper into some of the issues that we're facing in this industry. And when we're finished, we will have a recording and potentially address any questions that we might have missed. But now, let's get started. So I don't think there is much need to detail the state of the industry right now, right? I think we're all living it. We all know what's going on. I also think it's difficult to project out where things are really gonna go right now. Having said that, I was hoping that each of you could offer your views on where we are right now in this industry, in the evolution of the crisis, and where you see it going. Chris, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity to share with you guys. We have a daily huddle call every morning at 8:30 with my team, and it is the operations team that's led by our division president. And it is basically just to give a quick recap. It's 30 minutes long on what everybody is hearing, what everybody's seeing, and what we're seeing in the municipalities in which we build. And one thing that I could get out of this is that every single day is different. Every single day there's something new coming online. Every single day there's something concerning with consumers or customers or prospects. We're getting some cancellations. We're talking about how to save them. But the one thing that we are doing is we are working together to remain stronger, and our communication today is the best it has ever been. So there is a lot of silver lining that can come out of all this, and I think we just need to keep calm. We need to understand that we're going to get through this, and we're going to come out of this a heck of a lot stronger than we ever were coming into it. Regardless of how strong the market was, this was a wake-up call for a lot of teams out there, including my own, that we're gonna strive, and we're going to come out of this the best that we can be.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Pierrette, what's your perspective on where we stand?
Well, what's interesting is I actually started in this industry in Las Vegas right when the last downturn hit. So one of my first days on the sales floor was the day that Las Vegas and Pulte Homes took a huge price reduction and sort of started the ripple effect of what happened. And I think what I'm seeing in this instance is that the underlying base economy and financials and strength is still there. It seems like a very kind of isolated event. Obviously, it still has some major ripple effects, but the demand that we had in the home building industry, the demand for affordable homes, wasn't necessarily being met. So I'm hoping that we all can use this as a time to sort of catch up on some of that. And as we're starting to see other parts of the world coming out on the other end and the virus starting to slow, I see that as a positive, that this is a temporary situation and that the underlying elements of what we're going to be dealing with will not have as long-term effect as the last downturn.
Yeah, reassuring. Sam, what are you seeing?
You know, I really appreciate the on-the-ground perspective that Chris and Pirette have. I'll give you the perspective we're seeing with the websites, the home builder websites that we power, as well as the sales follow-up that we're seeing on model home visits and traffic in the model homes. From a website perspective, we've seen drops in traffic of between 25 and 35% if you were to sort of look at a normal curve. Some are a little lower than that, some are a little higher than that, but 25 to 35% over the last 10 days or so. The interesting thing is we've only seen a flat to 10% reduction in leads being generated on the websites. This is what we're finding really, really interesting. So the quality of the leads, the quality of the traffic going to the websites is much, much higher. I think the only people now actually going to the website are serious buyers. So you have to engage those serious buyers because they're on your website for a reason. And we've actually had the highest number of leads generated in our company's history for home builders happening just in the last 5 days, which is really, really interesting. So let's be intellectually honest about this. Let's see how this unfolds over the coming weeks, because things will change if this lasts 3 months, right? Very different than if it lasts a month or two, or a week or two, I mean. From a model home visit perspective, traffic was a bit more abrupt. We saw more like a 50 or 75% drop in model home traffic as builders started closing their communities and making it by appointment only. What we're now starting to see as we transition with many of our builders to remote tours and video capability and scheduling appointments remotely and potential remotely unlocking these model homes, we're going to start seeing traffic pick up again. But please give us another week or two to really stabilize that, because in the model homes, it was a bit more abrupt for most of our builders.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you all. That's great. Again, staying a little broad in the industry, we've noticed, or we know that fortunately, as we've moved to these shelter-in-place orders, we're about to enter that here where we are in Park City, Utah, in a day. Many other counties, community states are already there. Fortunately, the NHBA has helped ensure that construction qualifies as an essential industry, allowing us to continue work, right? So what are you seeing as protocols or standards that builders should be implementing, whether it's in sales offices or in the field, to make sure that we can maintain that designation? Pirette, did you have thoughts on that?
I did. So I'm actually currently the president of the Park City Homebuilders Association. So I've been dealing with this on a daily basis, talking with building officials, municipalities, health officials, and kind of trying to draft the communications that are going out to our teams. Obviously, the majority of people on this call are in the sales world, and there's a lot of things that we can do to try to work remotely, try to ensure social distancing, the by appointment only, keeping your groups that are traveling through model homes, if that's even still a viable option, small. Where it's a little more challenging to regulate is the actual construction sites themselves, and ensure that the homes are continuing to be built. And again, that we're using this time to keep as many of our team members employed as possible, but doing that very safely. There's obviously the CDC's website, as well as the NAHB has sent out communications for their standards on job sites. And that's something we can even share with this group if people are interested after the fact. But builders, whether you are a large corporation or you are a small local builder, need to ensure that they're following those safety protocols so that we don't put ourselves at risk of having our designation eliminated.
You know, that's great. Do you are you able to speak to, was there some effort that had to be taken by the Home Builder Association, the local association, to get that designation? Did you have to approach the county or?
Absolutely. We're lucky, you know, at the local level, we've had a very strong open dialogue with local officials over the duration of years' time. And so those calls, when they start coming in, it's a direct line to me as the president to talk through solutions and game plan together versus being reactionary. We tried to be proactive. But that's also happening at the national level. So the NEHB on a global level has been really involved in drafting legislation and ensuring that our industry has represented at the local, state, and national level.
Yeah, one of our listeners is saying they're struggling to get that designation in their area, and I just wondered if there was directions you'd point them to get assistance. Sounds like.
So what I've heard, actually, I have friends in the industry across the country. The one area where I've actually heard that they are shutting down construction sites is in Austin, Texas. Even in California, they've continued that designation in the Bay Area and other places that, typically are the first to kind of fall maybe. So Austin's the only place that I've personally heard is maybe under a different designation.
Michigan is also struggling with that. We're seeing from
so I would say, reaching out to the national and then probably your state HBAs will have the largest sort of, I guess, lobbying group or efforts involved.
Yeah. Chris, did you have thoughts on this too?
Yeah, so we deal with the Dallas Builder Association here. Phil Crone leads this, and he's done a phenomenal job keeping us going. I know Houston worked really hard to keep their market going as well. What I will say is the question that keeps popping up here locally and amongst all of us sales leaders within the Dallas-Fort Worth marketplace is shelter in place or building is considered essential. The question is selling considered essential? Right. So the big question is construction is continuing to work. The trades are still showing up. We obviously have to follow the social distancing because the authorities are coming out more frequently. We are seeing that. They're monitoring it a little bit closer. But is sales really essential? And I think for any of us that are in sales, we say, yes, it's absolutely essential because unless you're selling them, what's the point of building them and closing them and so on and so forth. So we feel, and this may be an ego thing from salespeople, we believe it all starts with sales. So if you shut down the sales offices completely, then we are really going to be forced to do a virtual selling, workaround. What I will say too is very well connected with the DFW market and very fortunate to have a lot of friends across the country, as does Pierrette. What we are seeing is that the companies that are doing an appointment only, that are still staffing their models, meaning the model doors are still locked. There are still signs on the doors to say, please contact us for an appointment. We're going to ask you a series of health related questions before we allow you to come in. What we are seeing here locally is that those sales are down about 30%. But if you have a appointment only and your sales team is not physically in the model, we're seeing sales as low as 50 to 70% off of what they were. So, you can still do some really great things to protect your employees, to still ensure that social distancing is happening. But we are finding that those that are staffing the models and still following those protocols are still selling a lot better than those that aren't. And that seems very common sense. But I do think that a lot of people are trying to do the best that they can to ensure that health and safety is first and foremost.
On that exact point, one of our attendees is asking about feedback they're getting from sales agents that they, the builder, are being irresponsible, disingenuous by keeping things open, right? And the question is, it's kind of hard to argue with that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would actually love to answer that. So I have, again, very fortunate that I get to speak publicly a lot and travel around the country and have a lot of close friends that run extremely large sales teams. And I had promised all of these people that I would not release builder names because that is a lot of them are, would just rather me not. But what I will say is that a lot of teams have done surveys amongst their sales team, very large teams, and said, what do you guys want to do? And I will say it is an overwhelming number that are saying, look, we don't eat, we don't pay our bills, we don't do anything unless we sell a home. Let us do our jobs. We are going to be safe. We want to protect our families too. Let us ask the questions of the people that want to actually come out, and let us handle this with precaution, but please don't just shut us down. If nothing else, give us the option of picking whether we want to go in or not. And if they don't, then you have to respect that, right? You can't say, no, you must show up or you're going to lose your job. That is just this is a horrible leadership altogether right there. But if there's somebody that wants to go in and do their job and accomplish what they're paid to do or they want to do for the betterment of their family, then I'm a huge believer in letting them do that. But if it needs to be optional, if there are people that are ultimately that concerned, then you need to respect that. And as a leader, I strongly believe you need to respect that. But again, those that are staffing their models with proper precautionary tails in place are still hitting 70% of their sales goals. Those that are not are losing 70% of their sales. So it's just, you just need to keep it in mind. It is a tough question, and it is always going to be a tough question. And the last statement I'll make this is one of my really dear friends, Justin Reynolds, made this statement. He goes, we will never know if we went too far, but we will always know if we didn't go far enough. Right. So kind of keep that in mind. So keep that in mind and do the right thing.
Yeah, right.
Chris, are there, for those where that isn't possible, for places where that isn't possible for one reason or another, whether it's legislation or otherwise, are there practical alternatives that get us close to there, technology or otherwise? Because in some cases that may not be an available option. What would you say to that?
I would say you need to be prepared for your sales to drop near about 30% of plan. And I think what we are all going to do is we are going to reevaluate our entire process as sales leaders, as business owners, as CEOs, and say, none of us in a million years thought that we had to figure out how in the world we were going to sell homes when the whole world shut off like that, right? So we are all sitting here and saying, holy cow. But we're in this together. We're going to figure it out. But what you have to do is you need to take a look at your website and ensure that you have the best sales tools available to your team, whether that be interactive plans, virtual tours, video, photo, online sales teams. There's a myriad of things that we are already doing, but we are realizing that what we're doing today is still not enough. We're going to get there, but it is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And there's no doubt about it. There will be companies that shut down. There will be businesses that don't make it. And it's horrible. It is sad. And a lot of the people that are probably on this webinar right now are business owners that are probably saying, how do I get past this? And I've answered phone calls and text messages from the people across the country, both public home builders and private home builders, and saying, hey, what can we do, or what can we do better with technology? Because I totally geek out about it. And I have some really cool ideas. I just wish I had a ton of money to put them in place.
Right.
Somebody's going to come up with these ideas, and we're going to continue to sell houses. We are.
Great. So I would like to actually go straight into that angle there, Chris, that you've mentioned, which is we want to get into what it's going to take to sell in this market, right, in this time, and then be set up for past this time when this all turns around. And to lead into that, the question is, what are the changes in the dynamics of the buying process now, right? Some of them are very obvious. Maybe there are some that are less obvious. So any and all of you on the panel who want to speak to what's happening in the sales process that's changing now. Chris, do you want to take that one first?
I'll let Pierrette take it because I just talked for like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Jump in on this one.
No problem. So I do think that some of those technologies and tools, we've had early adapters that we've seen that have embraced these things and have integrated, everything from online video sales tools to our chatbot technology where communication can take place via SMS text message where people are living every day of their life anyway, to even tools like I know Chris has promoted InterNow and Open Door and some of these remote access type tools. I just think that this is going to expedite the entry of all of those things into the market. It's going to force builders who before were maybe waiting for critical mass of others to test pilot and get them launched. It's going to require them to really think through, how am I going to operate my business without those tools now? Where should I be investing my money to ensure that my teams can be as successful and effective and efficient as possible? Not only today during this, time of social distancing, but even after we've gotten past that, we're going to see consumers more and more expectant of those tools to be available to them. And so when you talk about the web traffic numbers that BSM is seeing, that's in the home building space, it's in, I'm sure, every other space imaginable. And I think that it's going to force some of these technologies to fast forward.
Yeah, what do you think about the shift to text? We talk a lot about that at AtlasRTX, Sam, like in terms of customer behavior and how that applies in the selling process. Like customers are wanting to get rapid communication now, right?
Absolutely. In fact, as I sit here, and this really was not a prepared remark, it just dawned on me that we talk about social distancing and all of this virtualization of the sales experience as a bit of a shift and a change and a big deal to me as a Gen Xer and to baby boomers perhaps. But you think about going towards millennials and eventually Gen Z, and my Gen Z kids are like, I don't get the big deal. I'm fine. I've got everything. My friends are still available virtually, just like I've always experienced them, right? Because 80% of their experiences are still like this. It's really clear to me that we're just all being forced to sort of cut out 5 or 10 years of virtualization, of technological progress, shall we say, or that, progress might be a bit subjective here, but we're just having to push forward to a world that was coming anyway, which is, I don't want to have to do things on your time schedule when you want me to do it. I want to do it when I want to do it from wherever I want to do it. And we're now just being forced to face that reality a few years earlier than we were having to, but I really believe this was the progression anyway. And certainly text messaging is one of those. Virtual meetings like this is another. Video experiences, tools like Glide, which we use internally at Atlas a lot, and certainly many other tools like it where you can send video messages. That is the way of the future. So I think if we sort of accept that and adopt that and harness that, we're just moving forward and can really see this as an opportunity.
There's, if I can jump in real quick, there is, the question that comes up a lot is, even for my own sales team, because I do love technology, is like, oh, great, this is just going to be an instance where salespeople are eventually going to lose their jobs. The whole market's going to figure out how to sell homes without salespeople. One of the things that I love about AtlasRTX, because I was an early adapter to the text messaging system 3 years ago, I've been on unassisted entry. I'm a huge fan of that for 3 years now. There's so many things that we're doing, and we'll talk about this later, I know. But there's a saying that I use, and I did not come up with the saying. I for one, am not good at coming up with sayings, but I'm really good at remembering them. But I did not remember who said this. But there is a saying that I tell my sales team all the time, is that technology is not going to replace the salesperson. But the salesperson that utilizes the technology is going to replace the one that does not. That is more true today than it has ever been true in the entire existence of whomever came up with that saying. And this is why I say this. We are taking virtual appointments now, right? That's something we are doing. I have 5 virtual appointments already lined up for this Saturday with my team, whether that be Zoom, FaceTime, Google Duo, whatever it may be. But if your team doesn't know how to use those, there's no point in setting those up. So one of the things that you need to be doing as an organization right now is maybe have a technology education Zoom call, or get your marketing teams out there, because I know this is what we did, and said, hey, we have a Zoom account. Here's what it is. Here's how you use it. Here's how you set it up. Here's how you don't look like a goober in using it, and where we can be the most professional that we can be. So I would tell the sales teams, don't worry about losing your jobs. That's not what this is about. What it's about is figuring out technologies that are going to enhance you to do your job better.
That's fantastic. One of the attendees has asked a question, is sort of connected. Are any one of your divisions conducting virtual or by mail closings? You've talked about virtual homeowner walkthroughs a little bit, but maybe we could touch a little bit on that too. So who would like to take that one?
I mean, I can start a little bit. DocuSign is a tool that I think a lot of the large builders have been using. We use it even in the custom home building world. So, kind of handling the process of the home selection and the tour and the contract negotiation, maybe over text message or video conference or whatever medium you're using. And then there's plenty of systems like DocuSign is just probably the biggest and the first one that jumps to my mind for contract signing, as well as closing documentation can be done that way as well.
Yep.
I'm going to give props to, I'm just going to say, because it's a positive here, to DR Horton and Dallas Fort Worth. And here's where I'm giving the props to. They are, in regards to closing their buyers, they're offering 4 different methods of closing, one of which you can actually close in their normal offices, right? Well, that's an easy one. The other 3 are fantastic. One, they will actually send a notary to your home or to where you're comfortable. Yep. The third one is they are doing drive up signatures. So they are setting up tents outside in their corporate offices and their parking lots, and they're allowing you to drive up and be comfortable where you are to sign inside of your car. And then the next one is they're actually setting up plexiglass stations where they're actually sanitizing, so you can see the sanitation actually happening where you're standing, and it's almost like a sanitized partition between you, a plexiglass partition between you and the closer, and you can see everything happening, so you're comfortable knowing what is happening inside there. I just thought that was, 4 really awesome things to make buyers more comfortable in what they're doing and closing on their execution. Because there are those people out there. I'm not one, and I'm sure I may get criticized for saying this. There are those people out there that are just refuse to leave their house, and that's okay. If that is what it is, home builders need to come up with a solution to still get them closed on their house.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. That's really insightful. So as many companies are pulling back on their marketing spend now, what are cost-effective ways of reaching prospects in this environment that you guys are seeing?
Correct. I'll keep letting you go first.
Okay. So we actually have just been almost doubling down on digital mediums simply because we're seeing the types of web traffic that Bassem mentioned earlier. That's where everyone is gravitating toward. It's still a very affordable place to advertise. So everything from, serving up advertisements in your more traditional sense to spending a lot more time investing in our social media presence and making sure that we're relevant on those forums.
Yeah. So what I would add with that, and Kevin Oakley said this really, really well the other day. He said that we need to start focusing on the people that are already in our funnel, because those that are already in our funnel have already shown a desire to, 1, be there, but 2, actually purchase a home. So although traffic may be dropping physically through the doors, or you may actually see website traffic drop, although we're not, the people that are out there today are more valuable to your sales team than they have ever been before. And I was and I say this as fortunate, Pierrette, she started in the industry in Las Vegas. I was a selling sales manager in Arizona in the recession. So a selling sales manager, it's kind of an old school way of thinking, but you actually managed and you sold. I made more money in the recession than I have ever made still today, because I had a different mindset, is that if somebody was coming into my model in the recession, they're buying a house, because the woe is me, I will let that happen with the builder down the street, because that is not how I was going to be taking a look at this. And since the recession has kind of gone past, we joke as managers, if somebody comes in on a rainy day, they must actually be interested. If somebody is coming into your model today, they are truly interested in making their lives better. And it is your responsibility to show them how. So I would state with this is that really, really, really focus on the buyers that are already in your funnel today. Nurture those leads and show them how special they are and how much you care about them, and reach out to them in very unique ways. I mean, if you're not executing, obviously text messaging is key, but if you're not utilizing bomb video, or if you're not doing video emails or whatever it may be, you are behind the times. These things should already be set up within your organization to do. And if they're not, they're pretty simple to still jump on and execute to do. So focus on the ones that are already in your funnel. The second part I would tag on to this is, if you are a salesperson, and this one, if you happen to be in front of me right now, I'd choke you to death physically. If you don't believe in registering the people that walk through your door, man, do you feel silly and stupid now. Because if you feel that it is too intrusive, or you don't have the right to ask them to register, well, who in the heck are you following up with right now? Because those were the people that showed an interest in buying your house, right? So those are the people that should be notified of what you are doing right now, whether it may be a promotion for them or whatever it is. Like, make sure in the future you register your people, because you never know at the snap of a finger if the world is going to change. And those people you wish you had their contact information so you can tell them what's going on, you're going to regret that. So register your prospects. That's the easiest thing you can do.
And in fact, that takes me to another question we were thinking about, which is, some people are more as salespeople are concerned about pestering, right? Bothering people at this particular time where, you know, people are dealing with the crisis. Is there, you know, what is your sense on how appropriate it is to reach out as a salesperson now to your list, and how important is it to be proactive in getting into your backlog and your prospect outreach? Clearly critical. Pierrette, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the first thing that everyone should be doing is reaching out to their backlog. You know, can it be scary? May there be cancellations pending in that backlog? Absolutely. Something we dealt with in the last recession as well. But personally, I think if you reach out in an empathetic way, you touch base, you let them know that you're here for them, you're better off finding out that information early and or maybe helping coach them through that fear and getting them back on board. If you're not hearing from them, chances are they're making up their own stories. So you're better off to be involved in that storytelling. And so I would say, number one, reach out to all of your backlog as immediately as possible if you haven't already. It's also a great way to keep them up to date and in touch with how your company's protocols are changing, right? So how do they do their frame walk now? How are you going to help them through the build process? How are they going to go to their design appointment? All of those kinds of things. It's an educational, empathetic outreach. And if somebody's going to cancel, again, you're better off knowing early, getting that home back on the market, reselling it to somebody else who needs that home. So then secondly, in my opinion, same thing with the prospecting. I don't think you want to be overly aggressive right now. I don't think you need to be bombarding them every day if they don't get back to you, but just a simple outreach to let them know that you're there, update them again on protocols. And, you know, again, it's a touch base, not a sales pitch, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all that. And to back that up, I mean, cancellations are going to happen. We already talked about that, right? And I'm a huge believer, and I have always been, that if you get a cancellation on my team, if you work for me, you get 1 hour to cry about it. After that, you need to get over it, because think about it. And Pierre, you're probably the same way. You've sold in your career hundreds of thousands of homes, right? Especially since managing this. We remember the people that close with us. We very rarely remember the people, unless they're a complete nightmare, which sometimes there are. We very rarely remember the people that cancel on us, right? The industry on average has a 20% can rate. That is normal. So we're used to getting over it 20% of the time. So protect your backlog, be proactive. That's another thing for those of you managers that are on the call. I know for a fact you stress this. Proactive communication or reactive communication are two very different things. If you are proactively calling your buyers, that means you are reaching out to them. Just because you hear from your buyers all the time, but if they're reaching out to you, that's reactive communication. You should have a business philosophy already where your buyers are being contacted weekly. So for you to say that you refuse for a week or a month not to call them because you're afraid to hear, well, then that goes against everything you are as a person. You have a responsibility to those buyers in backlog to be the best that you can be and to be the professional that they signed up for. We all sell the same house. I mean, let's be real. It's got 4 bedrooms, it's got 3 bathrooms, it's got 2 car garages. Most of the time they're buying because of the salesperson and because they believe the salesperson is going to take care of their family the best. So be that person that they signed you up to be. If not, you should go find something else to do. I really believe that. The second part of this, I'm actually in the market for a new car right now. I sit my rear end in a car seat a lot, and I'm kind of tired of my vehicle. I've had it for a long time. And I've been poking around at buying a new car. And so I have a relationship with my car guy, and he reaches out to me all the time and he says, hey, I just want you to know that there are some really good deals on cars right now. Interest rates are as low as X. Oh, hey, by the way, I just found this car for you. I knew it was on your top 2 list. I can get it now to this payment. He's not a pest to me. He is actually my friend because he is now helping me get a car that honestly a month ago was going to cost me about $150 more a month. I still have not bought the car because I think I could maybe still get a better deal on it. So I may be like most consumers out there, but it is not a bother for him to reach out to me. He is doing me a service, and our prospects should feel the exact same way. And I'm gonna throw one more thing out there before I let you ask the next question. There is a company out there called 149 Photo, and I do not get paid for saying this. 149 Photo is amazing. It is a company that you guys all need to take a look at. They go, once the physical construction of the home starts, they send a professional camera crew out to the home and they are taking photos. So if Pierrette buys a house from me, she's going to get an email that says, Pierrette, on behalf of X company, we would like to send you professional photos of your home once per week once the physical construction of the home starts. Do you accept? Of course she's going to accept. We also get to tag the realtor onto this. So no longer is the realtor going to say that they never heard from the salesperson, which we know they always say that. Maybe they should drive out there too. That's a whole nother webinar we can have. But the fact of the matter is that they get weekly updates on the house. So even if your team is stay at home or shelter in place and they can't go out, 149 photos is still allowed because it's considered construction, an essential part of the business. They're still going out and taking photos of these houses. So although this may be going on, the prospects, the buyers, the backlog, even inventory are still getting updated on a weekly basis. So that is something that I highly suggest you put into place because that business is still moving. Houses are still getting built. Realtors still want to get the updates. Buyers still want to get the updates, and that gives you the updates. So just a
That's great.
tip right
That's
there.
great, Chris. And I think where we should go now in this conversation is let's dive into the technology, right? Let's start talking about, and maybe we talk about it from the customer journey perspective, right? What are the new technologies that, and some of them aren't new, but that you guys are using to help accelerate the customer journey and to help engage customers now digitally? So if we start from what we in AtlasRTX talk about as attract, right? The beginning stage where you're out there, we've talked about the importance of digital marketing. We've talked about obviously the outreach you can do to your existing customer base. But if you're trying to get new prospects, other than at this time, it feels like it's a digital marketing game for the most part. Yeah. Are there any other tools or tricks or tips on that far tip of the spear that that you guys are finding that you lean heavily on, driving in new leads?
Well, I think, Bassem, this might be a great time to just talk about, Builder Bot and some of the things that you guys are doing on the marketing RTX side to drive leads, more qualified leads down to the human channel.
No, absolutely. So I think given the continuation of traffic and given that traffic does continue to flow to our websites and arguably much higher quality traffic, and we're seeing that in the conversion rates on the website, the value proposition candidly for having live chat on the website supported by a chatbot becomes incredibly critical. And as Pierrette's alluding, our best practice these days, believe it or not, is to actually decouple the OSC, the online sales counselor, from the need to be available 24/7, 365 on the website, and instead for her or him to be responsible for the leads flowing through the chatbot powering the website. So we're getting traffic all through the day and night. As many of you have probably heard or seen from us in the past, we're seeing between 50 and 75% of traffic coming after hours to your websites, 50 to 75%. And we're seeing that in the conversions. If you're on a builder website at 2 in the morning, especially these days, you're likely very, very serious. You're very, very interested in learning more. So one technology that can be absolutely valuable is some sort of chatbot powered live chat on your website. And we obviously provide that technology. Another program that's been very, very popular and clients are asking us about over the last 5 to 10 days has been, can we take website traffic and convert it to text-based chat? Can we capture people who are coming and want to chat with us and give them a path to texting with us and giving them that as a new channel? Because let's remember, with the loss of the model home as a channel for us all in real time, we're now really dependent on the website to bring us people. But now we have to find a way to connect with those people. And today they don't want phone calls. And with all due respect, they also don't really want emails. They want to be able to be messaging with you and have that intimate connection that's real time. So what we're also able to do, and I think this is going to be a really good sort of midway program, is the ability to have a form on your website that transitions to text and now queues you up with whether an online salesperson or otherwise, to now be able to chat back and forth with that customer, potentially at 7 in the morning after you wake up. But it still now creates
You're
that.
talking about salespeople, Bassem. It's like 10 in the morning.
Sorry, 10 in the morning. You know, it's 10 to 3, right? Those are working hours. No, this is not gonna. No, it's real time. So once you're able to connect with someone over text, you now have them 24/7, right? You now have their phone number and a message thread between the two of you, and you can engage that. Engage in that chat at any point. So I really think that tool could be pretty meaningful for people in the coming months.
Right. So let's keep going. You've driven more traffic, hopefully, to your website, or at least more qualified traffic to your website through digital marketing. That traffic's getting engaged with, hopefully, with something like a chat bot that it has and live chat associated with it, if appropriate, to really have a natural conversation with a customer about and assessing them and really understanding how valid a prospect they are. And then you're moving to a chat discussion, text-based engagement with customers. Where do we go from there? What other critical technologies you've talked about? We've started to talk about virtual home tours. You talked about the photography. And in fact, there was a question, Chris, about the website for that 149 photo. Do you happen to know the web address? If you,
I believe it's just 149photo.com.
Okay, they were struggling to find it. Maybe if we can't find it, then we'll get back to everybody.
We'll gladly get back to you on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you could each speak to, because you've mentioned a number of other technologies in passing. Let's keep going. What else should people be investing in?
So like a InterNow or Open Door remote access system. Chris, I think you're probably pretty familiar with InterNow, right?
Yeah, so we've been using unassisted entry now for 3 years. And so I'm very fortunate that we have 60 locks here in DFW. And people are like, why do you need 60 locks? But we do a lot of inventory homes in DFW. So the concern that often comes up with an unassisted entry is, well, what's going to happen? My house is going to, like, something's going to happen to it. I've had over 10,000 unassisted entries in the last 3 years with 0 instances of theft. It's just the system is so secure in how you actually get in. The lock changes immediately once a consumer actually gets inside, that you know who's getting into your house. And that team there is great. And there's other companies that do it as well, but InterNow is just the one that we gravitated to. And to tag it on as well, when we started working with InterNow, and this was before our company was purchased, we were a privately held home builder. We're now publicly held. We were bought in December of 2018. We actually set up InterNow to integrate with Lasso, to integrate with AtlasRTX. And so think about it this way. A prospect drives through your community. They see a sign that says, why wait, enter now. They can either call the phone number or download the app. They go into the house. Immediately when they enter the home, we have all of their information. Immediately upon entering the home, it filters into Lasso. And then from there, you as the VP of sales, director of sales, whatever it may be, you get to set the time stamp of when Atlas will then reach out to that prospect and ask them the engagements that you want them to ask. Those engagements will then filter back into Lasso, into your history. So as a sales leader, you get to know everything that's going on. I get text messages. I choose to. You don't have to if you don't want to get the text messages. I tend to want to know what's going on all the time. I get text messages as soon as somebody enters the house, right? So unassisted entry, if you're not doing it, it's key. And there's another thing. Goodall Homes, and they're geniuses for this, and they were picked on quite a bit when they first started doing this. They have robot salespeople in some of their spec homes and model homes on days where the sales team is not there. Now, they're not looking to replace the salesperson, not an actual robot. What it is, it's a Segway with a stick on it, basically. Now, it's an actual company that sells these. They just didn't make it. And then it's got an iPad on the front. And then once you enter into their house, you use the Ring doorbell system. It then is going to funnel their online sales team. They actually call them ISCs, interactive sales consultants. It's going to trigger them. You walk up, you push the button, and the salesperson is on display for you, and they can zoom in and out of the house with you. Now, you may think that's creepy as hell, but it's not, because we're so used to dealing with technology today anyway. And the question is, well, how in the heck are you going to make the Segway climb the stairs? I asked that question, which was kind of stupid after I thought about it, because Segways can't climb stairs. It's not like it's not like Johnny Five from what the show was in the 80s. But they have a second Segway on the second floor, right? So they're there. But their demand for this is so huge right now that they have all these pads, and I think they're like $2,000 a piece. Who here wouldn't spend $2,000 to sell a house right now? I mean, that's a no-brainer. So I'll let you keep going.
Did you see Phil on Modern Family when he did that?
No, I'm gonna have to go look for it though.
He was following his family around. It totally like.
We'll be doing comedy routines on our webinars later. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so now we've got Enter Now. We've got some other players in that space. We've got Remote Lock. We've got
absolutely. You know, we one of our partners and friends is a company called UTour, which also does the same kind of technology, but an interesting capability that they have, especially as we now face this notion that Chris was alluding to, where we can't be in the homes at the same time, is they can support devices like an Alexa device that can answer questions about the home through the guided experience and feed the salesperson who's off-site what those questions are. So that's another sort of component of the experience. Now that you've gotten into the home, what do you do in the home? And there are multiple approaches there, but I thought that was a really, really interesting approach.
And what about virtual tours? I apologize, Chris. Virtual tours that we're having agents or sales folks create and give as part of either text chat or other means. That seems to be a new angle for some. Yeah.
One that we always used was Matterport. You have to have a finished kind of physically built model, but it gives you a really thorough virtual tour. And, you know, then obviously a salesperson can hold up their phone and, you know, film the house as well. But Matterport, it gives you a little bit more flexibility to kind of go into the rooms that you're interested in and turn 360 and sort of walk through the home virtually.
That's actually, Pierrette, that's been one of the programs that's been quite popular over the last few days. Our Client Delight team has been rolling that out, is exactly what you just alluded to. The salesperson takes their phone and essentially does a video walkthrough of the entire home as you know, calmly and pseudo professionally as they'd like, but with their voiceover, their explanation of how great the fireplace is and the views and the quality of the doors and so on. We can then upload that to a location somewhere, connect it to AtlasRTX, and now create an outbound text program that you can use to send that information to any prospective buyer who might actually find that a pretty compelling experience, because then they're getting that voiceover of the salesperson highlighting the features.
Personal version.
Very personal.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then they're able to, the salesperson can then say, well, do you have any questions now, over text, and continue the experience. So again, very much a Gen Z millennial style experience, but that's what we're all expecting now.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't look like it's from the Blair Witch Project, you're going to be okay. But yeah, I mean, there are so many. I mean, that's the one thing, because there are a lot of small companies that are probably on this. And Melissa asked a question earlier about technology, what you should spend, so on and so forth. I'm a huge believer that you should always have, and I stole this from Kevin Oakley. Again, I am not an intelligent person. I just take what all these smart people say and I just implement them. It's just what I say all of you should do. So Kevin Oakley, one of the smartest people I know, he was always a huge believer that you should take 5% of your budget and put it aside for research related items, right? So then over time, we would take that 5%, we made it 8% to 10%. So 10% of our budget was for research activities. And what that would allow me to do is I just knew throughout the year that if some company like AtlasRTX reached out to me, which Scott Lawley with Destination Homes, 3.5 years ago reached out to me and said, hey, I know you totally geek out over technology. You should try this AtlasRTX company. They're changing the game. And I was like, okay, well, typically if you're like most companies, you don't have the budget to just implement something in the middle of the year. But if you have a research budget already in place of anywhere from 5 to 10%, then you roll that out. With my research budget over the last 4 years, AtlasRTX, Enter Now, 149 Photo, Envision, Skycam virtual tours. I mean, the list goes on that set up my company to be purchased by a really successful publicly traded company because we were already doing all the things that they wanted to do or they wanted to incorporate. Now, if you have a research budget in place, you can be a small company and still execute those things. And what's oftentimes great about being a small company or a privately held company is that you can execute like this, right? Where oftentimes when you are public, you cannot. Nothing against that. It just oftentimes takes a little bit longer to get there, and you may get there eventually. But you have at your disposal so many amazing tools. And I do like the originality of just taking your phone. Maybe go ahead and get an Osmo so it's not too jankety, or go get a selfie stick so it's a little bit nicer, or get your partner to hold the video camera for you, whatever it may be. But as long as you are doing it, that's the thing. Just don't be stuck on the sidelines for all this. Jump on it sooner than later.
Yeah. There has been a question about how do you send bulk text messages like you do bulk emails? I think that's something that Bassem, we can speak to.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we, AtlasRTX can absolutely provide that and do provide that to our home builder clients. So there are certainly ways to do bulk text, to do ad hoc campaigns. But even more meaningful than that, to the person asking the question, is being able to tailor the texting experience so it's part of their journey. So they get a follow-up text after they go visit a model home, perhaps on their own, or they watch a video recording. They can get a follow-up text on their time frame. But certainly we can also do what are called campaigns, as you're alluding to, just sort of saying, I want to reach out to, if you were good, like Chris said, you should, and captured all these registrants from the last 60 days, we can certainly capture all 60 and go out with a promotion around closing costs or around specials of some sort. So that is absolutely possible with AtlasRTX. There are certainly other non-home builder specific tools that do that as well. Our tool is specific to home building.
Yeah, that's great. I do want to jump. There was a question that I was seeing if anybody could answer. Do you think model home merchandising will be considered an essential business in other parts of the country as it is in California? Is this something that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that people enjoy visualizing the entire home experience, and that the furnishings and accessorizing of that makes it personable and makes it easier to see how you could live in that home. Depending on how long this goes, I think that some people may kind of consolidate model parks or not build as many models. I think could be a possibility. But I do still think you see the tools online where customers can drag furniture into their own home and visualize it. I think all of those things are still going to be really important and critical for the majority of consumers.
And what about virtual? Sorry, please.
I think what we're seeing is that people don't like staying at home, right? Although all of these things are designed to allow us to purchase from the comfort of our homes, people still like to touch and feel and walk through a house. I mean, no matter how amazing we can make something, people will still always enjoy walking into a model and sitting in the family room and feeling what it looks like, or hanging out in the study, or having their kids run and pick out their room. That is still something that is uniquely fun and still very much a part of our business. So I agree with Pierrette. We may not do 3 model homes in a community. We may scale it back to 2 so we can spend, the $500,000 on that 3rd model and do digital stuff with it. But I still think you're always going to have a need, just like I feel like you're always going to have a need for salespeople. You're always have a need for model homes and for merchandising, because people still need to know how they live. And Pierrette's probably been in just as many houses as I've been in of consumers. People need help with their designing and their decorating, because some people have awful tastes. So we need to help them.
Touching and feeling materials, your design studios where people get to go, and that's part of the whole new home experience, right? It's that they get to go in and pick their tile and pick their wood flooring. And there's a big difference between looking at a photo of it on your computer screen and being able to physically touch it.
Well, interestingly, it sounds like I'd never heard of this, but someone has asked, do you feel virtual staging is worth the cost? So does that mean are there actual digital programs that give you that sense as well?
Yeah, there are. We've utilized them. I see it actually more frequently in the resale environment. So for a lot of agents who have one resale home rather than moving all the furniture in to sell that one property. They've utilized virtual staging tools. So I think it could work well for inventory homes and others. I've seen a handful that are pretty good. But again, if you're in a new home community where you're going to be selling the same floor plan, the same model multiple times over, the investment to actually put the merchandising in the model makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. So we have just a few minutes left, and I wanted to encourage any of you who are listening with us, if you do have a question that you'd like to put into the Q&A, we'll try to get to it. And we will send out the recording of this along with answers to any other questions that we were unable to get to. But we touched on a lot of really great things around tech, around sales. And I guess I'd like to bring it back to this question of yours. Do all of you think that once we're out of these woods, we're going to go back to the way it was, or are we headed truly in a new direction for home building sales?
I think we'll see it integrate. I think we'll see a lot of the things that come out of this in terms of advancements in technology integrate back into some of the more standard time-tested practices that the teams have had. I agree with Chris that personal connection that you feel with a salesperson through a new home and buying experience, it's such an emotional process that the technology will hopefully help to expedite getting people through the pipeline and to that connection. But I still think that getting back to that human connection is going to be a critical component.
Yeah, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, for those of us that lived through the recession of 2008, 9, 10, even some into 11, we'll never forget the scars. And I heard a webinar the other day with Carrie McCrome. She's been in this for 39 years. So she's done 4 recessions, right? And then the statement was also made that none of those were what we are experiencing today. Because again, I'll say, like I said earlier, nobody in a million years prepared for the world to change like that on us, to where we had to completely flip everything we were doing. We will very much still rely on salespeople and rely on the human touch and the emotion to sell homes. But what we're going to do is we will 100% enhance it with technology, because we want to be prepared for what we never thought we would have to be prepared for. And then the question in my mind is what are we not thinking of that could possibly happen next? We always thought, okay, what are we going to do if we hit another recession? But never did we think, what are we going to do if we literally can't get people to walk through our doors to sell houses?
Right.
Because I think the statistic is like the average salesperson employs 36 people, meaning like this is a very noble profession. What you do employs a ton of people. I mean, just drive through your neighborhoods and see. I mean, I'm sitting in one of my communities right now and I'm looking out the window and there's a park and I get to see all these great people playing. Like what we do for a living is really, really cool. We get to change people's lives and we get to make it better. So we just have to remember that. We have to enhance it, and we just have to be better as people, better as humans, better in technology. We have to be better as leaders to make sure that when this happens, we equip our team with the best tools possible.
That's so great. I think I'll just toss it to you, Bassem, for a final comment as a CEO of a business and speaking to the leaders of sales teams and leaders of home building companies. What do you recommend for them as they try to navigate their businesses through this time?
Thank you, Melissa. And I'd like to just follow on to Pierrette's and Chris's answers by saying this is a different kind of recession. And we're all presuming we're in it. I think we can all sort of assume that. This is very different because it's an externally triggered recession. That is, in 2008, we all knew that it was the economic system itself that had a flaw in the way we were dealing with mortgages. In 2000, yes, we had the catastrophe in 2001 with 9/11, but we had a dot-com bubble that had reached crazy valuations and burst. I think Pierrette alluded to this. 2 weeks ago, we all felt like the economy was on sound ground. We were in a sensible place. I'm not saying that we're not going into recession. It's clear that we're going into recession, but it's a different one that will force us to sort of think externally and think differently about how we have to handle this. I do think that normalcy at some point will return. It has to. I do think people are going to be buying homes in the future. We will be building homes and we will be selling homes. We do need to get past the risks and uncertainty until we get to the point where we have a flu shot for this and can overcome it. There will be the uncertainty. So I'll leave you with just 3 bits of advice that is more for me than it is for you, but it's what I tell myself because I sincerely believe in this. This is not a time to be afraid. This is not a time for fear. Fear causes us to panic, and panic causes us to make really bad decisions. This is a time to do exactly the opposite of that, to be pragmatic and thoughtful. The second is this is a time to focus on what we can control. There is so much unknown coming at us every single day, let alone sooner than that in some cases. We have to focus on what we can control. And I love Chris's point. You can be sad for an hour. I certainly do feel sad for some of the challenges we run into from day to day, but you have to move on and focus on what you can control. But finally, and point number 3, this is an uncertain time, and it does require us to have some room for flexibility in our plan, some room for responding to what is happening, not just at the federal level and at the state level, but all around us. Things are changing by the day, and I think flexibility has to be part of our plan.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. As we wrap up here, Chris, we'll put up a final slide here that'll just show you all where you can reach out to us. We would absolutely love your feedback on this webinar. We will share the video. And as I say, this is the beginning of a series where we would like to address other issues and concerns that you all are facing. So please feel free to email us at success@AtlasRTX with your ideas and thoughts and questions. And we look forward to speaking with you all in the future. I want to thank our panelists, Pierrette Tierney, Chris Hartley, Bassem Salem. Thank you all so much for being here today and sharing your insights.